What a game the Nrl world witnessed on the 26th of June 2025, where the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs went up against the Penrith Panthers at CommBank Stadium to one of the best regular season games we've seen in a very, very long time. So many people have said this is potentially a preview to the grand final. Many people have said that there was more intensity in this game than both origins so far this year. And in fact, many people have said that this was a better game than the grand final 2024. Now, me as a Bulldog supporter, first and foremost, before anything, I have to say I am so extremely proud of the boys that played on Thursday night. What a performance by our team. But I also have to say, what a fantastic performance by the Penrith Panthers, who less than a month ago were down and out. That was a performance for the ages, and one of those games that will stand out for a very long time as an instant classic. And it wasn't even a finals game, and it was not that much. In fact, the hype wasn't that big. Sure, they tried to hype up against, ex-Panthers players coming up against current Panthers players and all these types of things, but the hype, it wasn't that big. But my God, did it deliver in bucket loads. Both teams were incredible. The refereeing, I thought, was fantastic. The atmosphere just seemed to be so thick and so intense. It was just remarkable. So we are going to review the game today. It's not going to be a long review. It's just going to be an honest review about where I thought the Bulldogs went well, where I thought they could improve, and my overall thoughts on how both of these teams will be going moving into the rest of the season. If you do like our content, if you love to see what we do, you love to hear our reviews, all that good stuff, please be sure to thumbs up, give this video a like, subscribe down below, do all the good things, share it with your mates, share it with your cousins, share it with your friends, and stick by us. We've got heaps of content coming up. And now we're going to deep dive into the game. So I want to start first and foremost by talking about the refereeing. I really, honestly, truly think this was a fantastic refereeing performance. And in fact, it was so good. I think the first thing I said after the game was done and sort of trying to gather my thoughts around it was, can we get Atkins in to referee Game 3 of Origin? Because I just think that his performance on the night under extraordinary pressure in an extraordinary game was really, really impeccable. There was one call where was penalised for a high shot on Bronson Xerri, but ultimately, I don't think it was Atkins that made the call. I think that was a bunker call, and surprise, surprise, it was Ashley, I'm not a Queenslander, Klein, who gave the call that was a high shot and a penalty, which again I don't agree with. But overall, I thought the penalties, the six agains, the calls, leaving the game to flow. It was remarkable how he was able to do that. He's still sort of a relatively new referee, and I hope this is the quality of refereeing that we see in the third and final Origin, then also through into the finals. Because I think what as fans we want to see is much less of the referee. There's a saying, the less you see of the referee in a game, the better he is as a referee, which is, a bit of a conundrum for a ref, because I guess sometimes refereeing ego can get in the way, and you sort of want to make the game a little bit about yourself. And as we saw with sort of Klein in this Origin series, both games 1 and 2, it is disappointing. But, that was great by Grant Atkins. And I think, we criticize the referees a lot. I know I do. And so when they do a good job, I feel like I have to call it out, because that's the quality of refereeing that you want to see. And I think us as sort of fans and pundits and things like that, we should sort of call out the type of refereeing we would like to see when we see it. So that's sort of on the refereeing front. As for the game, I think I want to talk about the game, and I want to be a little bit honest here about what this game was. This game, as a fan of both the Bulldogs and rugby league, was extraordinary. I loved watching every single minute of it. I loved seeing the defense. I loved seeing the attack. I loved seeing how game plans were being played out across the park by both teams. I loved seeing how all the sort of the bigger stakeholders in each team, like your Crichtons and your Burtons and your EOs and your Clearys, how they were sort of going about playing the game and how they're going about trying to dissect each other's defense. Because ultimately, this game was all about defense. These style of games that have such high intensity, high quality footy are all about defense. We don't see these games very often, but when we do as fans, I think I need to sort of tell my fellow Bulldogs fans, this game cannot be judged the way other games are judged. This was a finals style, defensively oriented match. That's where it was won, and that's where it was lost. Ultimately, the way the Panthers defended was remarkable, and it was really back to the way we saw them playing over the last 5 years. They were impenetrable. Not that I don't think that we would have we couldn't have scored. I think we did score, or we could have scored. Sorry, but one of the things I realized is that in this type of game where the intensity is so high and the speed is just ridiculously fast, the rules are a bit different. It's a bit like quantum, physics or whatever you want to call it. The rules on the edges of quality sort of are a little bit different. The way you judge a game should be different. The way you judge every other game. Like if you were to look at the Manly Tigers game, the night after, that was almost like it was a whole different sport compared to the Bulldogs and the Panthers. And so I think like we as fans, as Bulldogs fans, need to come to grips with just how good of a performance that was, even though we as fans know that the Bulldogs could be so much better than what we were on Thursday night. And so I need to point out that even though the Bulldogs lost, we didn't get the W, we didn't get the 2 points on the ladder, the amount of winning there was by the Bulldogs on Thursday night, I think, is fantastic. And so the first thing I sort of want to point out is this team as a collective, sure, we lost. We didn't get the 2 points. But we needed a loss like that. And there's two things that come to mind. So the first thing is this. They say you have to lose it. You have to lose a grand final. Oops, almost dropped the mic. You have to lose a grand final to win a grand final. I would say that intensity game sort of starts to prepare us for the finals. So maybe not a grand final, but it starts to prepare us for the finals. We need to lose those types of games to know what it takes to win those types of games. And the second point I want to make is that as a team, as a collective, we've only played one finals game. One finals game. The Panthers, on the other hand, had 11 players on Thursday night that had played in the 2024 grand final. A grand final they won against Melbourne. Now, I know that there was 6 players there that hadn't played in that game, but you cannot discount the importance of finals experience, the importance of tough, intense, fast game experience like the one that we saw on Thursday. And while I'm not making excuses, I know that one of the main reasons we lost was not because we played poorly at all. I don't think you can judge us as having played poorly at all, but it was big game experience. And I think what that game does for us is it teaches everyone there, all 16 Bulldogs players that were there, that this is big game experience. This is what a big game looks like. And this is how we need to, or what we need to prepare for. This is what the finals are going to be like. We're not going in there as, oh, you guys got lucky to make it the finals. No, we're clearly going to be in the finals. And in fact, my opinion is that we will finish top 2. Whether we finish minor premiers or not, I'm not sort of willing to make that call, but we'll definitely be top 2. And so that's the type of game we need to prepare for. And so now when this team prepares for September, they know what it feels like to prepare for that. They also know what it feels like to lose a game like that. And so the amount of winning that's come out of that is just remarkable. The other thing that I think we can't forget as a team is that we only conceded 1 try from a charge down. Look, it was unfortunate. It was definitely unfortunate, but we did not allow them to score through us. It was a charge down. Big moments need big players, and Cleary is the best, one of the best ever. But it doesn't change the fact that we didn't actually allow them to score a try on us, whereas we scored a great team try. We did score a great team try, and for a majority of that game, I felt like we were the better team. And that's not to talk down the Panthers' achievement. I thought the Panthers winning after such a tough year of footy was remarkable, and they deserve their chocolates. And hats off to them for their performance. But I still cannot be disappointed about the way the Bulldogs performed at all. Like that was a fantastic display by our boys, in every facet of the game. I thought, our defense was incredible, our attack was fantastic, our connection was great. The way we would take some shots, like Bailey Hayward took a kick and he went tried to kick a 40-20. He just missed it on distance. There's so many different things that I'm so happy about in that game, and we saw some of our young guys and even some of our more experienced guys really come up and show us what they're made of. And what I also want to sort of really highlight and point out as a Bulldogs fan and as a fan of rugby league, but as someone who's going to be brutally honest to every other fan watching this, on Thursday night, there are only two teams that would have won that game. It would either have been the Bulldogs or the Panthers. If you had any other team against either the Dogs or the Panthers, I'm telling you, they would get smashed. The Panthers would have beat any other team 13 plus, and I reckon the Dogs is the same, would have beaten any other team 13 plus. That performance was unreal, and we have not seen any other team other than the Dogs and the Panthers perform at that level in 2025. And I don't know if many teams are able to get to that level. Now, here's the thing about getting to that level. I actually have some strong thoughts, and I have a hot take. And I might get, shouted down about this opinion, but I want to hear what you guys think, right? I believe that the Panthers were playing at or close to 100%. They were at their ceiling. They were absolutely at their ceiling, and I don't know if they could play any better. The Bulldogs, on the other hand, I think we were between about 80 and 85%. I think we still have a good 10 to 15% improvement in us, and we can play a lot better. Now, you may think, oh, this guy's wild, or he's watching it with rose-tinted glasses. You guys lost. You guys are crap. You guys are pretenders. You say all those things, but it doesn't change the fact that in the second half, we made a lot more errors. We only completed just above 60% in the second half. We had more missed tackles. We had all these other things that went against us in the second half. Not saying that it was anyone else's fault or was refereeing or anything. I'm just saying that we didn't play at our best in the second half. Now, what I do recognize is that a game of this caliber and a game of this intensity and speed will bring mistakes. It will bring fatigue, and it will bring poor decision-making. I put my hand up and I agree. But that's why I said earlier that after this game, we will be so much better for losing. We will be so much better for the experience now that the whole team has. I guarantee you, for the next big game like this, we're going to prepare differently. We're going to train differently. We're going to come into the occasion differently. That game had so many positives for the Bulldogs beginning to end. I cannot even begin. And one of them is the fact that we didn't even play at our best, and we can get better, and we will get better. And now that we know that we're a good team and that, very few teams can match it with us, it's a scary proposition for the opposition. And it's, as a Bulldogs fan, it's extremely, extremely exciting. It's just so exciting as a Bulldogs fan where we can actually go this year. And I do believe that we are one of the main contenders for the premiership. Now that Metcalf's missing from the Warriors, you'd think that it may be tough for them to get to that next level. But even the Broncos are too inconsistent. The Storm have not been playing at their best. But anyway, I don't want to get into that. But the point is, we are honestly more than just the real deal. We're coming for everyone. But on contenders and grand finals and things, I've got to take my cap off to the Penrith Panthers. Those guys are extraordinary. The fact that they are continuing to fight after being last on the ladder, essentially, almost just over a month ago, is just kudos to the nature of their team, the nature of their organization. They are remarkable. Like, you cannot praise this team high enough, and I don't think anyone ever gives them the praise that they deserve. The fact that they've won four grand finals in a row, have played in 5, have gone, to last on the ladder, and come back to perform at the level they're performing right now, it's just mind-blowing how good this team is. But I want to center just one thing. I just want to talk about one thing in the Panthers' performance that we as Bulldogs need to learn from, and that is game management. The way Nathan Cleary managed that game was incredible, and I think there's been some great halves that's come before him, but I'm starting to believe and starting to honestly think that Nathan Cleary is the best halfback we've ever seen. And if not, he's the best game manager we have ever seen. If you look at the way they played that second half, they took the lead and then they were as calm as as calm as a cucumber the whole way through. Sure, they were attacking and they didn't put the cue in the rack, they didn't do any of that silly stuff, but they still continued to attack, but they weren't under any panic. Cleary just kept kicking where he needed to kick. He kept, making the right decisions. He kept, putting it on a dime, keeping us, putting us in corners. And the way he did it with the calmness that he did it with, I thought was remarkable, even though the Bulldogs were coming home very strong. We were coming home with a wet sail. In the last 10 minutes, we had 3 or 4 opportunities to win that game, but they didn't panic, neither in defense nor in attack. And, in 10, 20 years, 30 years' time, someone like Cleary is going to be looked back upon, and that's when it's going to hit us how great of a player this guy actually is. The way he manages the game, the way he attacks, the moments that he chooses to inject himself are all very difficult to do. He just makes it look easy, and I think that's the beauty of a champion like Nathan Cleary is he makes it look so easy, so easy. But there's just no denying that these two teams, they almost cancelled each other out. Like, there was no winner or loser in that. Everyone won in that game. I think both teams will walk away so extremely happy. And, these types of games, we need to be really honest with ourselves. When these games come along and happen, it's a toss-up as to who wins. The Panthers could have lost by 2 points. And I think they'd be happy with their performance. But the Dogs lost by 2 points, and we should be extremely happy with our performance. And not just happy with our performance, but we should be extremely glad that we were able to perform the way we did. Because, again, these types of games, it's never this team's better or that team's better. It's the who wins those moments or who has a little bit more experience to take the game away from the opposition. And that's what we saw. And it wasn't a loss. I genuinely feel like that for the Bulldogs was a massive W. No matter what you say, sure, we didn't get the 2 points, but honestly, we're doing pretty well in that department. We're on 28 points and there's still 10 games to go. So we could potentially, finish with 40, 42, 44 points. If we only drop 3 or 4 games, going into the finals, we're not necessarily in a rush to make points, but we are in need of experience. We are in need of big game experience, and that game gave it to us in spades. Again, what we took away from the game is absolutely remarkable, and I'm so happy to have watched that game. It was just incredible, and it only sets up the next time we verse these guys around 25 at Accor. I mean, you can only imagine the hype around this game. Is it a grand final preview? Especially if the Panthers continue to win, it's just going to be remarkable, and it's so tantalizing for a Doggies fan, but also I think for rugby league fans to have this quality of footy being played should really tantalize and excite you as a rugby league fan. Now, I've spoken a little bit. I just want to talk just a little bit about some points around my views on the quality of the game, and then I want to talk about some specific points in the game where I think there have been some criticisms, and we'll go through them quickly. But firstly, I want to say the quality of this game was better than the first 2 Origins. Clearly, I think the intensity, the speed, the flow, the physicality was just on another level, and I think it was a bit better than both Origins that we've seen so far this year. I also think this game was more intense and more exciting than last year's grand final. I was at last year's grand final, and while it was a great contest, I didn't think it had the intensity that this game had. And so if we saw this as a grand final, I think we would say that would probably be one of the best grand finals we had ever seen. With the added hype, obviously, and grandeur and spectacle of a grand final. That's how great I think this game was. And I hope to God that the NRL looks at this game and says, "This is what we want to see more of. This is the refereeing we want to see. This is the intensity we want to see," and they hype up these games because I think like the top 4 or 5 teams are going to perform at a really high click, and everyone else is just sort of struggling to make up the numbers more so this year than I think I've ever seen. You know, which is exciting because those teams are going to have to really, you know, the teams that want to make it from sort of the you know, teams 5, 6, 7, and 8, and they're going to have to lift their intensity quite a bit to match it with the top 4. But now I want to talk about some individual things in our team that maybe need to be called out because either they were really, really good or some fans are saying they were really, really bad. The first one is Connor Tracey. Connor Tracey, I mean, this guy's journey to get to where he is right now, I reckon is remarkable. If you consider that, you know, he was sort of unwanted at the Sharks. He's come to the Dogs. What didn't come as a fullback, came maybe as a winger or a center, and then got the fullback role. Has made it his own and has only continued to improve. Is just remarkable. Like, think of it this way: at the beginning of 2024, I don't think anybody would have had this guy as being the fullback of the number 1 team in the competition. You know, when he started with the Dogs in 2024, for many reasons. And, you know, he didn't come through as a fullback. He came through as a 5'8", but he was willing to learn and to grow. And so what he's become today is not only a great fullback with a high work rate, but he's become a central part of our attack. He's also become such a dynamic runner of the ball, whether it be bringing it back after a kick or, you know, taking it on fourth, just to make sure that our game plan stays the way it is. But also his defensive plays and his positional plays, both in support and in defense, they've really gone to the next level this year. And I think, like, you know, there's always this talk about, you know, can you win a grand final with this guy? Can you win a grand final with that guy? I know many people that said the Panthers could never win a grand final with Dylan Edwards at fullback. And I sort of see the same thing in Connor Tracey, in that, you know, people say that about him, but I strongly believe that as a fullback, he's more than adequate. In fact, I think he's fantastic, and he can definitely be a premiership winning fullback. And we saw that on the weekend. Big games need big moments, and there were none bigger than the 2 try-saving tackles that Connor Tracey made on Blaise Talangi. You know, Panthers score those tries, could be a very, very different game. But Connor Tracey, he had his self-position. He came in with physicality. He knew what he needed to do to stop the tries from getting there. And he did exactly that. And look, sure, I'm a Dogs fan, and everyone's going to say, you know, you're glazing the Bulldogs. But Connor Tracey, that performance on the weekend was remarkable because he had a lot of bombs put up that he needed to take, and he took them cleanly. His defense was fantastic, and don't forget, it was him that you know, was there to support for that try. You can't forget just how important that is in a fullback, and he was there, and he's there all the time. So I think, again, that's the fantastic brilliance of Con Tracey and his development over the last 18 months at the Bulldogs. I have to give you know, continue to call out our spine. I thought Mahoney had his best game in a while as a Bulldog, even though over the last month, I feel like he's definitely picked up his game. You know, I thought in both defense and attack, he was really burning them. You know, he was taking some really good scoots out of dummy half. His service was clean and crisp, so it was wonderful to see. The other one is Toby Sexton. There's a lot of talk about his future and things like that, but my God, has he been on absolute tear the last month? He has been playing out of his skin, and I think, you know, the fact that he's moved to 9 against the Panthers, and we didn't really lose too much in that. He was still there. He was still defending, and he was still doing all that he needed to do. I thought was just a credit to him because he's been playing out of his skin. You know, in that first half, I thought he was everywhere. His passing section was great. You know, he ran a couple of times and dummied. You know, he's trying to keep the opposition guessing. His kicking game was good. When Burton wasn't there to kick up, you know, I was just enthralled and you know, sort of really pleased by the way Sexton is playing. Which also I guess I should mention Burton. I think Burton's had his best month as a Bulldog since he's come to the club. I think he's only going to get better. It's sort of interesting that he's playing better than he ever has been, but he's not 18th man for the Blues. Honestly, I thought he would be again, but it's a bit of a shame. But I think Burton's also been fantastic, and I guess the elephant in the room is Galvin. Galvin has been, I guess, the catalyst for all our spine to play better. Because they know that they have pressure on them. The 6 and the 7 have pressure on them. And by extension, also Mahoney has pressure on him, given the way Seraldo has been shuffling the deck. And you can't deny that Galvin coming in has lifted both all of our 6, 7, and 9. And that can only be a good thing. And, one of the things I want to talk about is the fact that people are saying Galvin coming on ruined our rhythm, ruined our momentum, ruined our this, ruined our that. Look, I don't buy into it because in our second half, our completion rate was 62%. Galvin wasn't the one dropping the ball. Galvin wasn't the one with the ill discipline. Sure, he missed a tackle. Everyone misses a tackle. I'm not going to sit there and go at him for missing one tackle. He missed the one tackle, whereas there were so many drop balls. Players were out of position. Things like that. This is what it comes down to when it's disciplines on the line. They are the things that are going to affect your momentum. They are the things that are going to affect your flow of the game, and they are the things that affected us. Quite frankly, they are the things that affected us more than Galvin coming on. Look, did we lose some steam when Mahoney went off? Maybe. And I think especially in this game, Mahoney was doing a great job. And I thought in the final 10 minutes, it would have been great to have Mahoney back on at 9 in place of Sexton, because I thought he could have controlled the ruck a little bit better for us. His service may have been a little bit better, but that's also no knock on Sexton. Sexton isn't a 9. And so maybe Seraldo needs to go back and just have a little bit of a closer look at that. But again, the great thing about Seraldo is that he's trying things. The great thing about Seraldo is that he's got time to perfect it before we get to the finals, because that's when we need to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect now. We need to be perfect when we get to the finals. And Seraldo's got the courage to say, we've got a great young kid who we know can help us attack. We're going to start using him, and we're going to figure out where he fits, so that by September, first week in September, when we start the semis, we start the final, we know where Galvin fits. We know how Galvin goes. So that's, I guess, you've got to really look at it in a long-term fashion, not in a short-term sense, because, all right, short-term gain is great, but it's not like we're doing badly in the short term anyway. We only lost by 2 points to the team that's been in 5 straight grand finals and won 4 of them straight. So again, it needs to be very clear. It needs to be really, really clear that what Seraldo's doing is actually very smart and probably flies a little bit above some fans' heads in trying to understand just what Seraldo is trying to do with the makeup of the spine and the team. And so, no, I don't believe that Galvin coming on ruined the team or was the reason for the loss at all. Honestly, I think it's a little bit unfair to say. But again, that's just my opinion. That's my opinion. Now, the other one I want to talk about is Crichton not taking the 2 when we got that penalty for the top or high shot. I get where everyone's coming from, that step up to the plate. You're a team. You're a champion. Try and take the kick, whether it's you or Burton. And just try your luck and try and kick it out so we get the ball back, so on and so forth. Look, I get where you're coming from, and I do agree to a little extent, but I don't think there's a right answer here. I don't think taking the 2 or not makes that big of a difference, because I'll tell you why. Crichton not taking the kick meant that Crichton showed that he has more faith in the Bulldogs' attack than he has in his own kicking. So he trusts his team more than he trusts himself. And he said it again. We were making breaks. We were getting on the outside. We were running down. We had every opportunity to score. And if you think about what the 2 outcomes could have been, if he kicks it, we go to golden point, we still have a chance to lose. But if he risks it and we get the try and we win, everyone would be calling Crichton a genius. And that's why I'm sort of like, well, there's no correct answer here. It's not a either or. It's I'm going to trust my captain's call. I'm going to trust his gut, and I'm going to say, I think you made the call. There's no right answer, but I'm happy to back you. And Seraldo in the press conference also came out and he said he backed that call. And it's as simple as just understanding that Crichton's made the right call more often than not. And so if he makes the call, I think it's a little bit not high and mighty, but I think it's a little bit funny that fans, we can come in and say, oh, he should have done this or he should have done that. No, he's on the field. He's the captain. He's made the right call more often than not. And as a fan, I want to say I trust his judgment because he's out there. He's the one always making the correct calls. And look, to see that the coach backed him, I thought that was sort of vindicating for Crichton. But again, it's not. I don't think it's that big of a talking point. What I also want to mention about Crichton is I thought that he was a little bit too emotional during the game. I saw that he was trying to get into the head of Casey McLean early, which didn't backfire. But I thought Casey McLean had a great game and gave it back to Crichton as much as Crichton gave it to him, which was good to see. It was a great battle on that right edge for the Bulldogs. Do I think that he should have been a little bit more ruthless, a little bit more sanitized in that game? Maybe just a little bit, just not to allow himself to get too emotional about it. But he did run for over 200 meters, 80 something post contact meters. So he had one of his best games of the season statistically, and you can't be mad. This guy knows what he's doing. Again, he's the captain. He's won, 3 grand finals, taken the Dogs to the finals, been one of the best players in Origin, for a couple of years now. And so it's like, you know what, bro, you do you. But that's just an observation that I thought. But it was good to see how emotional the team was at full time. For me as a fan, that is very good to see. It makes me very happy to see that the boys are emotional about a loss and they're not just sort of clapping their hands and not feeling the pain, because we definitely were as fans, even though we were extremely proud of them. And I mean, the final thing is, look, I don't want to go through all the statistics because I don't think they necessarily matter in a game like this. But our completion in the second half were really, really poor. And I think the reason for that was we started playing catch-up footy too early. So we didn't need to start playing catch-up footy after they scored. We still had a good 10, 15-minute period there where we could have just stuck solid, stuck to the game plan, not thrown the ball around too much, and just sort of gone into the rhythm of a back and forth, and opportunities would have shown themselves to us. But we did start playing catch-up footy too early, which is sort of my only knock on that game. But again, like if you look at the intensity and the way Panthers were defending, I can't fault the boys for playing catch-up footy. I just think as a fan, and if there were some things that we needed to sort out, it was just playing catch-up footy too early, and it was our discipline in terms of errors. We just made too many errors that I think hurt us quite a bit. There were, I think maybe there's one set that went out, and we gave him a 7-tackle set that also hurt us a little bit. But again, overall, I'm sort of nitpicking as opposed to actually making big comments and big sort of suggestions on how the boys played. And I think that's really what I that's what it comes down to. The amount we're going to take out of this game as a team, as a collective, as a club, I think is innumerable. I think we've got to be really grateful to being able to play such a high quality game. We are going to get better. I think that there are many aspects that we can get better in. There were some puzzling decisions, I thought, from Seraldo. Like he switched Montoya and Kiraz around, for this game, which again, I get the coach just trying things and wants to make sure he can play on both sides. And maybe he wanted Kiraz there to try and attack To'o in the air, but we didn't really do that as often as I thought we should. And so I don't know if that really paid off as much as Seraldo was hoping. I mean, the other thing is, does Kiraz catch that offload from Crichton if he was there instead of Montoya? Maybe, maybe not. Again, I'm not going to sit here and try and shit on any one player because I don't think anyone had a bad game. But I just wonder whether we were a little bit off there because of the positional switch. But again, it's really nitpicking at this point. Both the Bulldogs and the Panthers played a magnificent game of rugby league. I'm going to go back and watch the whole game again just to see, just to watch and indulge in that game, because we didn't have any game this round that went anywhere close to, scratching that itch of wanting high quality rugby league. And unfortunately, I probably don't think we're going to have a game of that caliber again for a while. May not be until the Dogs versus Melbourne, or Dogs versus Panthers again or whatever, because that was a high quality game. The following game, the Manly and Tigers game was really, it was a really tough watch. But that's where I think that Thursday game was that I cannot talk highly enough of it. Or both teams that played in it, or the referee, or anyone. That was a great game. Great game. I do want to say quickly that I think moving into the finals, the Dogs have 10 more games. We've got a couple of tough ones coming up. So we have the Melbourne Storm, we have the Tigers, we've got the Broncos obviously this Friday. We're going to have the Dragons, who are not too bad. And so it's going to be a bit of a tough run for us, but I think that this is the perfect way to get into the finals. You don't want to ramp up on easy matches. You want to be battle hard and getting into finals footy. We do get players back, so Salmon comes back round 20. Tupanua will come back round 20 as well. So we will start to get some of our players back. Hopefully we don't have any more injuries or suspensions, so that we can continue to tinker with our team to ensure we've got the right mix going into the finals. My prediction is we will end either first or second. We're on 28 points. In 2024, the Panthers came second with 40 points. I think Melbourne came first with 44 points. Based on the Raiders' run home and our run home, I think we will end up second. We can drop 4 games out of our next 10 and still end up on 40 points. I don't think we're going to drop 4. I think we'll maybe drop 1 or 2 more after this Panthers game. So maybe we'll lose 5 or 6 games max, I think. And so that will be good enough to get us, second or maybe even first, depending on how the Raiders go after with their buys and things like that. So like in terms of playing after the bye, it could be a little bit clunky. So that's where I think we'll end up second. And if we get second, what that means is our first final will be at Accor. You can probably expect 70,000 Bulldogs fans there. Our second game, if we win the first, our prelim to the grand final will also be at Accor, which will also have 65, 70,000 Bulldogs fans. If we make it. So that's where I see our trajectory is. Again, it's only 6 of 10. We've won so far, 11 of 14. So 6 of 10 is not that big ask from the club. So he's hoping that we can put those performances in. I really appreciate you guys watching this video. If you did like my breakdown, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, share it with your mates, share it with your cousins. I will say this Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. we will be going live with some Broncos fans who run a Broncos podcast called Penalty Broncos to preview the Dogs versus Broncos Friday night clash. That'll be at 7:30 p.m. on YouTube live. We will be live. So if it is something that you think you would enjoy and something you want to be a part of, please be sure to meet us then and to join then. But other than that, thank you so much for all your time. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe. Thank you, and have a great day. Up the Dogs.